The Babylonian gods. They are like the Sumerian gods, but stronger. But exactly how big is their strong? And why would you assume I know the answer to that question? I'll have you know that I am a grown man. I only know about things for adults, like paying mortgages and building a Yu-Gi-Oh deck. You know, real grown-up stuff. By the way, before we begin, I once made a video talking about the Sumerian gods. For this video, I am assuming that you have already watched that video. If you haven't, there's a link in the description. I am not trying to farm views, by the way. It's actually very important that you've seen that video before watching this one. With that out of the way, we can begin. The first thing you need to know about the Babylonian gods is that they are essentially the same as the Sumerian gods. The only thing that changes, really, is their names. In this video, we will talk about the same 5 deities we discussed in the Sumerian video, but in addition, there's going to be a new challenger. We'll get to him in a bit, but first, let's reintroduce the gods we'll be discussing in this video and their new names. First, the god An, who now goes by Anu. Next, the goddess Inanna, who is now called Ishtar. Then the god Enki, who is now called Ea. And lastly, Ninurta and Enlil, who stay the same. They don't get new names. Well, Ninurta is sometimes called Ningirsu, but we're going to call him Ninurta for the rest of this video. Speaking of names, Babylonian sources refer to the Babylonian gods using both their Sumerian and Babylonian names, so you can still use the Sumerian names if you wanted to. Now, these 5 gods are the deities we'll be power scaling in this video, but in addition, we have a new player, Marduk, the absolute strongest deity in the Babylonian pantheon. We will get to why later, but for now, let me tell you a story. In the beginning, there were only 2 bodies of water, Apsu and Tiamat. When these 2 bodies of water came in contact with each other, they created the gods. There were 2 groups, the Anunnaki and the Igigi. Now, the Anunnaki are not aliens, but they are the cool ones. The Anunnaki are the ones I'm going to be power scaling in this video. Basically, the Anunnaki were the 1%. On the other hand, the Igigi were basically the filthy peasants. They don't even get individual names. They are all, as a group, referred to as the Igigi gods. You know, like the plebs. Now, at this point in creation, there is no heaven or universe or anything like that yet. The gods currently exist within Tiamat and Apsu. So when the gods move, they disturb the waters, and eventually Apsu gets tired of this because he can't sleep, so he decides that he's just going to kill all of the gods. Unfortunately for Apsu, the god Ea discovers his plan. Ea then puts Apsu to sleep and kills him. By doing this, Ea becomes the master of the Apsu. This body of water becomes his weapon, a weapon that could be used to, say for example, flood the world.
Foreshadowing as a narrative device.
With the death of Apsu, Tiamat becomes enraged and declares war on the Babylonian gods. The gods are terrified about this because Tiamat has a really big number. No god can beat her. Until suddenly, enter Marduk, the son of Ea. Marduk tells the gods that he can beat Tiamat, and all he wants in exchange is to be acknowledged as the most invincible. The gods agree to do this. Marduk goes where Tiamat is, and not only does he beat her, but he one-shots her. After seeing that, the gods all fall to their knees and acknowledge Marduk as the strongest of the strong. After this, Marduk creates the universe, the Babylonian heaven, and the underworld. With creation established, the gods Anu, Ea, Enlil, and Ereshkigal divide existence between them. Anu takes the heavens, Ereshkigal is given the underworld, Ea claims rulership over the Apsu, and Enlil takes the earth. With their dominions established, the Anunnaki now need lowly peons to do menial things for them. The Anunnaki are far too rich and famous to do things for themselves, you see. And so, the Igigi gods are bestowed the also great honor of being forced into laboring for the Anunnaki. Fast forward some time later, and the Igigi gods had enough of being non-paid servants, and so they riot against Enlil. Like a true Chad, the god Enlil cries to his other Anunnaki buddies to come and save him, and after some deliberation, it is decided that humanity will be created to replace the Igigi. And for some time, things were great, until humanity grows too numerous and becomes so loud that Enlil cannot sleep. So Enlil proposes to the rest of the gods that humanity should be wiped out using the deluge. Enlil wants to flood the world. Eventually, this is done, and only 1 man survives. As a reward for surviving the deluge, this man is given eternal life. Then the gods make more humans, and those humans continue to toil on behest of God until this day.
What a story, Mark.
Anyways, let's talk about power levels. First, let's cover the things they all can do. The Babylonian gods are all regarded as establishers of all physical form, and are all said to be beyond comprehension, whatever you want these things to mean. The Babylonian gods also can manipulate fate, but now it does not come from anyone. They all can just naturally do it by default. Also, they can spawn anything they want out of nothing, transmute something into another thing, resurrect the dead, including other gods. They all emit light, They are all said to be super smart, they all know the future, and many are straight up said to be omniscient. Also, they can increase the power of others, and speaking of power, all the Babylonian gods scale above Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh could be argued to be as powerful as a constellation. In addition, Babylonian sources acknowledge the existence of the Egyptian gods, and to no one's surprise, the Babylonians believed that the Babylonian gods were more powerful than the gods of other cultures, so every Babylonian god should scale above the Egyptian pantheon. Furthermore, all of the Babylonian gods are credited with having enough power to shake and or destroy all of creation. In fact, every single Babylonian god is said to be the absolute strongest god in the pantheon, and many Babylonian gods are outright said to be omnipotent. And lastly, every single Babylonian god has at least one me. All of this is what you get just by being a Babylonian god. Now, let's cover the 6 deities this video is about. Let's start with Enlil. Still regarded as king of the gods, Enlil is said to gather all things to himself, whatever you want that to mean. But he is no longer the source of fate manipulation. The Babylonian gods can now all do that by default. However, Enlil can give orders to the god Anu. If Anu truly was top dog, no one would tell him what to do. Then again, when the Igigi gods decided to riot, they were going to kill Enlil, and Enlil was so scared, he locked himself inside his house and called Anu for help. So clearly, Enlil is not stronger than Anu. Enlil also didn't know that the Igigi gods were planning to kill him, and this automatically disqualifies him for being omniscient. Lastly, Enlil now hates Ea. This is because when Enlil wanted to destroy humanity, Ea wanted to save them. It is with the help of Ea that one human survives the deluge, and Enlil has been salty ever since. And that's all I have for Enlil. As you can tell, Babylonian sources do not give us much we can use to power scale Enlil, but he still has all the general powers I talked about earlier in the video. Honestly, I had so little to say about Enlil that I could have removed him from the video entirely, but if I would have done that, people would have asked me about him, so that's why I kept him in. Anyways, let's move on to Enlil's son, Ninurta. So, Ninurta is said to have surpassing strength, and he oversees the equilibrium of the universe, whatever you want these things to mean. Also, Ereshkigal, the goddess of the underworld, acknowledges Ninurta as the most powerful. Now, Ereshkigal is the sister of the goddess Ishtar. Ereshkigal should know what Ishtar is capable of, and more importantly, Ereshkigal obviously knows about Anu, and even then, she regards Ninurta as the strongest. Ninurta also, supposedly, has authority over commands or mes that are beyond the comprehension of the rest of the Babylonian gods. And Ninurta has control over the wind, which was created by Anu. This wind was so powerful that it was affecting all of Tiamat, and just half of Tiamat was placed across the universe, meaning Tiamat was, at minimum, twice as big as the observable universe, and the wind that Anu created was basically shaking all of her. This same wind, Ninurta can use as a weapon. Speaking of weapons, the Sharur still exist, but we have significantly less information about it now. It's still a weapon, it can talk, and it delivers messages for Ninurta, but that's all the information we have now. Lastly, Ninurta defeated the Anzu bird. This was a creature that could manipulate fate, and because of that, the Babylonian gods thought it was invincible, but Ninurta beats it anyways. However, Ninurta did not one-shot the Anzu bird. He kinda struggled with it, which makes the feat a little less impressive. Alright, now let's move on to Enki, or Ea, as he is now called. First of all, Ea once gave to a mortal the power to disable the wind that was created by Anu. Ea is also credited with creating wisdom itself. To the wife of Ninurta, Ea gave the knowledge of healing, and a follower of Ea claims that Ea gave him omniscience. Furthermore, Ea can make someone like Apsu fall asleep, and he also can kill Apsu. Then again, since Apsu was asleep, that makes the feat less impressive. As the now master of the Apsu, Ea can use this water as a weapon, and the Apsu water is so powerful, it makes all of the gods afraid. However, his most impressive feat was the creation of Saltu. Ea once created a being that was as powerful as the goddess Ishtar. But why is that impressive? Well, let's move on to Ishtar. So, Ishtar is now the daughter of the moon god Sin, and she is sister of the sun god Shamash. But confusingly, she is also said to be both the wife and daughter of the god Anu. She is described as being muscular, she has rainbow-colored eyes, and she emits light, just like every other Babylonian god. However, it is specifically stated that her light illuminates all of creation. Not all of the Babylonian gods get that statement. Speaking of light, Ishtar is said to be as bright as the sun, and not only are Shamash and Ishtar siblings, they are twins. We could argue that anything that applies to Shamash would also apply to Ishtar, and here's what Shamash can do. As the god of the sun, and by extension light, Shamash was credited with being capable of dispelling darkness, and therefore evil. Because of that, the Babylonians believed that Shamash had the power to remove curses, witchcraft, and magic. In addition, it is said that all of creation is insignificant from the perspective of Shamash, and it was believed that his light illuminated all of creation. Also, he can control time. Speaking of time, it is said that the light of Shamash spans across all of time, and all of this should apply to Ishtar too. Furthermore, it is said that Ishtar herself can negate curses. She also possesses healing powers, and with a mere glance, she can resurrect the dead. Supposedly, just saying the name of Ishtar or merely thinking about pronouncing her name makes all of creation tremble and all of the Babylonian gods become afraid. Ishtar is also the goddess of war, an embodiment of sexuality itself. One time, Ishtar was killed, and the moment she died, sexual reproduction stopped throughout the world. She is then resurrected, in case you're curious. Now, is being the source of sexuality powerful in some way? Not really. Being the source of sex does not help you beat people like Goku or Superman, but I always like giving as much info as I can. And since we're talking about concepts, it is said that Ishtar has a ton of mess. Too many for me to waste your time listing all of them, and in fact, it is said that she has all of them. Also, like every other Babylonian god, Ishtar is said to be the strongest, period, and with this I disagree. However, she is also said to be the strongest of the goddesses, and you know what? With Tiamat dead, she probably is. See, as I mentioned before, Ea once created a being called Saltu, and Saltu was as powerful as Ishtar. Ea then makes Saltu even more powerful. Saltu then goes to fight Ishtar, and Ishtar beats Saltu. After beating Saltu, Ishtar learns how to properly use her powers and becomes even stronger, which is what Ea wanted. That's why Ea created Saltu. Now, beating a version of yourself that is even stronger, that's a very impressive feat. A feat that no other goddess in the pantheon surpasses, which is why, with Tiamat dead, I have no problems on giving to Ishtar the title of the strongest goddess in the pantheon. Notice I am saying strongest goddess, as in among the female ones. I'm not saying she's the strongest in general, because we're not there yet, but for now, let's move on to Anu. This is gonna be really short. Just like in my Sumerian video, Anu doesn't have many feats or statements we can use. It's mostly just his status in the pantheon, but here's what I have. Anu is considered king of the gods. He made the wind, and the wind is pretty strong. The wife of Ninurta claims that Anu made her the strongest. And lastly, for Anu, he is often used as a yardstick for power. Whenever Babylonian sources want to convey that a god is really strong, they will often say this god is as strong as Anu. They wouldn't do that if Anu was weak. And that's it for Anu. So now, let's move on to the actual strongest god in the pantheon, Marduk. So, Marduk is the son of Ea. He is described as having 4 ears and 4 eyes which look in all directions. It is said that Anu made him perfect, whatever you want that to mean. Marduk is also fast enough to travel across all of heaven. He is also strong enough to move Tiamat's body. Marduk also can shake heaven. He made all the stars, set the constellations in place, and created time. In addition, Marduk can erase things out of existence and then he can respawn them again. Furthermore, Marduk can wield the wind created by Anu. Marduk also has 10 mes, including kingship, and he is equated with the Greek god Zeus, so if you wanted to, any scaling for Zeus could also be given to Marduk. And lastly, Marduk once destroyed an infinite amount of weapons. But none of this is the reason why Marduk is the strongest in the pantheon. The reason for that is because Marduk defeated Tiamat. Ea could not be Tiamat. Anu could not be Tiamat. Ishtar, Ninurta, Enlil, no god could defeat Tiamat. Only Marduk, and he defeated her casually. That's why he is the strongest, and in fact, that feat puts Marduk so much higher than the rest of the pantheon that Marduk could actually defeat every single god I talked about in this video at the same time. Defeating Tiamat is the reason why Marduk, and Marduk alone, deserves the title of the strongest in the pantheon. And with that, we are done. Mostly. I still want to power scale Tiamat, but she will have her own video, which means it's conclusion time. So, how powerful are the Babylonian gods? Well, the answer is the same as it was in my Sumerian video. Fate manipulation is a very strong ability to have. The majority of mainstream, well-known and popular fictional characters do not have a counter to fate manipulation, so the Babylonian gods would beat them. With that said, come back next time for my video on Tiamat, unless you're watching this in the future, because if you are, a link to my video on Tiamat will be down in the description. Oh, by the way, I just remembered something. You could mix Sumerian and Babylonian sources to create what would be called the Mesopotamian gods, and that would make the pantheon significantly stronger. Alright, see you on my video about Tiamat. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.